It was 6:47 p.m., and the sound of my microwave was the only thing breaking the quiet. I was still in my scrubs, hair pulled back, badge dangling against my chest, when my phone lit up. A message from my mother. "Honey, we need your part for Chase's graduation. It's $2,200. Please send it before Friday. Don't make this hard." I stared at it until the screen dimmed, then read it again. Like maybe I'd missed a please that actually meant something. 3 days ago, that same phone had stayed silent through my son Mateo's 6th birthday party. No call, no text, nothing. He'd spent the whole afternoon pressed against the front window, waiting for grandparents who never came. Every time a car slowed outside, he whispered, "That's them, right, Mama?" And every time I had to shake my head and pretend it didn't hurt. Now, 3 days later, they wanted money. Not an apology, not even an excuse, just a Venmo request, dressed up as family duty. I felt my throat tighten, but it wasn't sadness this time. It was clarity, cold, sharp. I opened my banking app, fingers trembling, and typed the number. $1. In the memo line, I wrote, "Best wishes, use it wisely," and hit send before I could blink. Somewhere behind me, the microwave beeped. Mateo giggled from the living room, his tiny voice cutting through the heavy air. I looked toward the window, the same one he'd waited by, and whispered to myself, "No more waiting." If you've ever been the one who gave everything and still wasn't enough, you'll understand exactly why I sent that dollar. I'm Eva Morales, 31, single mom, ER nurse in Austin, Texas. I've learned to run on caffeine and instinct. Sometimes that's the same thing. My son, Mateo, is 6. He loves dinosaurs, peanut butter sandwiches, and pretending my tiny apartment is a spaceship. Every night before bed, he lines up his stuffed animals, like they're his crew. I used to think that was cute. Now I realize maybe he just hates feeling alone. My mother, Lenora, lives 20 minutes away, but she likes to act as if it's another state. She calls when she needs something, money, a ride, or someone to brag about at her church group. My stepdad, Hank, is a retired contractor with a God complex. He thinks helping me co-sign my first mortgage means he owns part of my life. And then there's Chase, my half-brother, 24, fresh out of college, their golden boy. My mom says he just needs a little push to get on his feet. That push, apparently, is my wallet. My best friend, Noor, teaches 3rd grade and drinks cheap Merlot like it's self-care. She's the one who shows up, with food, with perspective, with silence when I need it. She's also the one who told me last week, "Ava, you don't owe people who keep score." My place isn't fancy. 1-bedroom duplex with beige carpet and a stubborn fridge light. But it's clean, quiet, and mine. Or at least that's what I keep telling myself every time Hank reminds me of that mortgage signature. After I sent that $1 payment, I stood in the middle of my small kitchen and felt something shift. Not guilt, not regret, just space, like the air was finally mine again. If this sounds familiar, if you've ever realized your family support came with a receipt attached, then you already know what kind of story this is going to be. Some mornings start before the sun, before Mateo even stirs under his dinosaur blanket. I pack his lunch, PB&J, apple slices, a sticky note that says, "You're brave today." Then I gulp cold coffee from last night and drive through half-awake neighborhoods, the kind where everyone waves, but nobody really sees each other. Work is chaos. ER alarms, fluorescent lights, people bleeding and breaking and begging. I patch strangers up, tell them they'll be okay, even when I'm not sure I believe it myself. By the time I clock out, my body hums like static. I check my phone, a text from Mom about Chase's big day, Another from the daycare, reminding me my balance is due. No, how are you? Just the usual transactions, disguised as care. At home, the quiet feels heavier than it should. Bills pile up on the counter, like tiny accusations. Mateo hums to himself, drawing superheroes with crooked smiles. He looks up and says, "Mama, when Grandma comes next time, can she bring me balloons?" I swallow the lump in my throat, nod, and say, "Sure, buddy, maybe next time." When he's asleep, I sit at the kitchen table, scrolling through family photos, Hank's hand on Chase's shoulder, Lenora's smile. That only seems to work for him. I don't even exist in half of them. I record a quick voice memo for therapy. Stop chasing what hurts you. Boundaries don't make you cruel. They make you safe. Then I press save, close my eyes, and breathe through the ache in my chest. The kind that isn't about money or even love, just the quiet hope that maybe one day family won't mean survival. It's funny how numbers stick. Longer than apologies, $1 and $200. That's what I paid last spring to fix Mom's car after Hank's truck backed into it. She said she'd handle me later, and later never came. $380. The grocery run I covered last Thanksgiving when Chase forgot his card. He walked out with a smile and a to-go plate. I walked out with overdraft fees, $9.99. The monthly subscription for the church donation app, Mom guilt-tripped me into joining. Just so the family shows unity. The math never lied. I did. Every time I said it was fine. Flashback, me, 23, holding my newborn at the hospital, asking Mom to come. She said she couldn't. Hank was remodeling the deck. "It's just bad timing, sweetie. You're strong." I was strong, too strong for my own good. Flashback, Christmas, 2 years ago. Chase opened a brand new MacBook from Mom and Hank. I unwrapped a family recipe binder, full of blank pages. Mom smiled. "Now you can finally start your own traditions." Translation, "You're not part of ours." Hank liked to joke that I got my responsibility gene from him. He'd wink and say, "Eva can handle it." And I always did. Childcare, errands, emergencies, because it was easier than fighting the hierarchy we never named. Sometimes I wonder, when did I become their unpaid insurance policy? When did helping families stop being love and start being labor? I scroll through old messages. Mom's "We're proud of you," always followed by a favor. Chase's "You're the best sister ever," right before a request for cash. The pattern hums like background static. That night, after putting Mateo to bed, I stood by the window he used to watch for them. The streetlights painted thin bars across the floor. Looked almost like a cage, and for a second, I realized maybe I'd built it myself, one sacrifice at a time. I whispered into the dark, "No more loans, no more maybe next times." Some debts aren't in dollars, they're in silence, and I'd been paying interest for years. The group chat lit up that night like a siren. Lenora. So proud of Chase, venues booked. Hank. Families coming together for something big. Everyone contributes, no exceptions. Then the breakdown followed, like an invoice from hell. Venue deposit, $900. Catering minimum, $1,000. DJ and decorations, $2,500. Total, $3,400. "We already covered half," Mom texted, "so your part is $2,200. Fair split." I stared at the math, mouthing the numbers. It didn't even make sense. Half of $3,400 isn't $2,200. But sense was never the currency we used in this family. Guilt was. A voice memo came seconds later. Mom's soft, honeyed tone that always preceded a request. "Sweetheart, we just want to celebrate your brother. He's worked so hard. Don't be petty over a little money. You know how people talk when families don't show unity. There it was. The word again. Unity. My mother's favorite mask for shame. I scrolled back through old threads. Times they'd asked for help with community donations, car repairs, house insurance, always worded like kindness. Always ending with my bank account lighter. That night, I called Noor. She listened quietly, the way real friends do. When I finished, she exhaled. They don't want help, Eva. They want proof you still know your place. And just like that, it clicked. The money wasn't the point. It never had been. It was the test. Their way of checking if I'd kneel on cue. I looked at the screen again. At that neat little number, $2,200. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never felt toward my own family. Not anger, not sadness, detachment. I don't know what hit me first, the exhaustion or the clarity. Maybe both. They feel the same. After years of swallowing resentment and calling it grace. I opened my banking app. My thumb hovered over the numbers. The way you hesitate before cutting a wire you know will explode something. My balance wasn't much, but this wasn't about money. It was about finally calling their bluff. Amount 1.0. Note, best wishes. Use it wisely. The send button glowed blue. My pulse synced with the tiny spinning wheel that followed, like it was measuring the moment my spine grew back. Payment sent. Seconds later, the group chat pinged. Mom, Ava, I think you mistyped the amount. Hank, check it again, $1. That's embarrassing. Chase, LOL, is this a joke? I set the phone face down. The kitchen clock ticked louder than it ever had. Behind me, Mateo was building a fort with couch cushions, humming some off-key cartoon song. The normalcy of his voice made everything else shrink. I whispered to myself, no, not a mistake. Then a text from Mom popped up, long, emotional, rehearsed. Family isn't about keeping score, Ava. You've really disappointed us. I smiled. Just a small, tired curve that felt more like peace than defiance. Keeping score? That's all they'd ever done. I just stopped playing. Before bed, I typed a note in my phone. $1, one boundary, one clean breath. I didn't know it yet. But that tiny transaction was going to change everything, because the next morning, someone would try to cash in the only leverage they had left. Control. The night after I sent that $1, I couldn't sleep. The air felt strange, too still, like the house itself was waiting for something. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off, just the hum of the fridge and the glow of my laptop screen. My mortgage account page was open. My name, Eva Morales, was the only one listed. No Hank, no Lenora, no one else. 3 months ago, I'd gone to a small office downtown with peeling paint and the faint smell of burnt coffee. Raj Patel, a real estate attorney, had reviewed my file. He was quiet, methodical, kind. Technically, you can remove a co-signer if you prove income stability and credit. It's tedious, but not impossible, he'd said. Tedious I can handle, I told him. What I can't handle is leverage disguised as love. It had taken 12 weeks, 2 pay stubs, and a pile of notarized forms. When the new deed arrived in the mail, I didn't celebrate. I just held it for a long time. Proof of ownership, proof of freedom, and slid it into a manila folder under my bed. My little insurance policy, just in case the people who claimed to protect me ever decided to burn my house down metaphorically. Now, with the weight of that folder in mind, I felt steady in a way I hadn't before. I didn't need to yell or argue. I didn't even need them to understand. All I needed was silence and paper. Before going to bed, I opened my voice memo app and whispered, "Boundaries without proof are invitations to debate." The next morning, I woke up different. Not brave exactly, just done pretending. They still thought the house was part theirs. They still thought their names meant ownership. But soon, they were going to find out what happens when you build your control on a foundation someone quietly took back. Saturday morning came soft and gray, the kind of light that makes everything feel heavier before it gets lighter. Noor showed up in her oversized sweatshirt, holding coffee in one hand and a bag from the hardware store in the other. "Ready to stop letting ghosts in?" she said, half joking. "Ready," I answered. The locks weren't broken. They just carried the wrong history. The old brass deadbolt still had Hank's fingerprints on it, literal and metaphorical. He'd insisted on a spare key when he co-signed the mortgage. "For emergencies," he'd said. Funny how control always dresses like concern. Noor knelt beside me as we worked. The air smelled like metal and rain. Each turn of the screwdriver made a clean, satisfying click, like punctuation after years of unfinished sentences. I counted them in my head, one for every time I'd stayed silent, one for every time I'd let myself believe family first meant me last. When the new lock slid into place, it gleamed under the porch light, a quiet little crown for a home that finally belonged to me. Noor grinned. "Take a picture, proof of peace." I did. A single photo, new brass against chipped white paint. It looked ordinary, but I felt the shift. Inside, Mateo was drawing on the floor, crayons everywhere. He looked up and asked, "Why did you change the door, Mama?" I smiled. "Because sometimes grown-ups need new doors too, buddy." He nodded like that made perfect sense. That night, when the house settled and the rain started tapping against the windows, I locked the new deadbolt and whispered to myself, "My house, my locks, my rules." I didn't know it yet, but by changing that lock, I had just triggered the storm waiting on the other side of the door. It started with a knock that wasn't really a knock, more like a demand in rhythm form. 3 sharp hits, a pause, then another 3. Hank's knock. The one that always meant open up before I get angry. I was standing in the kitchen drying Mateo's lunchbox. The sound froze me mid-motion. "Stay in your room, honey," I said quietly. He nodded and went, dragging his little dinosaur blanket behind him. The knock came again, harder this time. Then his voice, deep, clipped, rehearsed. "Ava, open the door. Your mother's with me." I looked through the peephole. Lenora stood a few steps behind him, clutching her purse like a prop in a morality play. Her eyes were wide, pleading, or pretending to be. Hank, though, was pure certainty. That posture that said this is still my territory. He pulled out his key. I heard the scrape of metal, the useless twist, the click that didn't come. He tried again. Click. Nothing. The tiniest sound in the world, but it split the air like thunder. His face changed, confusion first, then anger crawling up his neck. He turned toward Lenora. "She changed the damn locks!" Lenora stepped forward. "Eva, sweetheart, this is unnecessary. Your father just wanted to talk." "He's not my father," I said through the door, my voice steady but low. "And we don't have anything to talk about." Hank leaned closer, his breath fogging the small pane of glass. "You think that piece of paper makes this house yours? You wouldn't have it without me." I let out a slow breath. "And now I have it without you." For a second, everything went still. Even the rain stopped sounding like rain. It just hovered. Then the anger cracked. His voice rose, heavy with that old authority. "You don't slam doors on family, Eva. You're acting like a stranger." "I learned from the best," I said. Lenora's voice came softer now, sugar over vinegar. "You're hurting your mother, honey. We're just worried. Everyone's talking. What will people think?" There it was, her real fear. Not losing me, losing face. I opened the door just an inch, left the chain on. Hank's eyes darted to the gap like a dog scenting weakness. "I don't care what people think," I said. "I care what my son sees, and he won't see me open a door to disrespect ever again." Hank's jaw flexed. "You're making a mistake." "I already did," I said quietly, "for 31 years. Then I closed the door. The chain rattled softly, final and clean. Through the wood, I heard him slam his fist once, just once, and mutter something to Lenora before stomping off the porch. Their car doors shut, the engine started, and as their taillights disappeared into the rain, I realized something terrifying and freeing. That door wasn't just locked. It was history, sealed. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of tires on gravel, that particular crunch that means someone isn't just passing by, they're arriving. Through the blinds, I saw Hank's truck parked crooked in my driveway again. Lenora sat in the passenger seat, half hidden behind her phone. My stomach dropped, but my hands were steady this time. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and opened the door just enough to see. Hank stood with a clipboard. No, a printout of something. And that smug posture that always meant, "I'm about to prove you wrong." "Morning, Ava," he said, like we were neighbors chatting about the weather. "Figured I'd give you another chance before I call the cops." I didn't blink. For what? For locking me out of my property. There it was, the line he'd been practicing. I stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. "Your property?" "I co-signed that mortgage, remember?" I tilted my head. "I remember. I also remember refinancing. You're not on anything anymore, Hank." He smirked, the kind of smirk that's always been backed by Mom's silence. "We'll see what the police say." And then he actually did it. Pulled out his phone, dialed, calmly, deliberately, like he was reporting a crime. Lenora stayed in the truck, watching me through the window, eyes glassy with that mix of fear and complicity. 15 minutes later, a police cruiser rolled up. Officer Collins, tall, composed, eyes scanning everything. He walked toward me first. "Ma'am, I got a call about a property dispute." Hank jumped in before I could answer. "She's keeping me out of a house I helped buy. She changed the locks. I'm on the mortgage." Collins held up a hand. "Let's confirm that." He turned to me. "Do you have paperwork, ma'am?" "Yes," I said, pulling the envelope I'd kept by the door. "Refinanced in April. My name only." He skimmed the notarized copy, nodded once. "Looks clear to me." Then to Hank. "Sir, you're not listed as an owner. That means this isn't your property." Hank's jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "I do," Collins interrupted, his tone shifting slightly firmer. "She has every right to restrict access. You need to leave." Silence. Just the sound of the cruiser engine humming behind us. Lenora rolled down the truck window a crack. "Eva, please, this is humiliating." I looked right at her. "Then maybe stop showing up uninvited." Hank muttered something under his breath and finally turned away. As they pulled out, Officer Collins handed me his card. "If they come back, call me first. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your space." When the cruiser left, I stood there on my porch, barefoot, heart pounding, papers in hand, realizing I hadn't just defended my house, I defended my peace. The house was too quiet after they left. Not peaceful quiet. The kind that hums beneath your skin, waiting for the next sound to break it. I walked through each room like I was checking for ghosts. The air still carried traces of them, a faint smell of Hank's aftershave, the echo of my mother's voice calling me sweetheart in that tone that always meant, be small, make peace. The clock on the microwave blinked 9:47 a.m. The same blue light that once felt ordinary now felt like a pulse, steady, watchful. I made coffee I didn't drink. sat at the table with the papers still spread out, their edges curling under the fan. I kept waiting for my phone to buzz again. Another demand, another guilt trip. But it didn't. No texts, no missed calls, silence. And that scared me more than their shouting ever did. In my therapy voice notes folder, I hit record. They're quiet now. That's never good. Silence is how they reload. My voice sounded strange, flat, almost calm, the kind of calm that hides panic underneath. From Mateo's room, I heard the soft scrape of crayons on paper. He was drawing again, humming to himself, safe in his little bubble. I looked at him through the cracked door and whispered so low it was almost just breath. "You won't grow up waiting by windows like I did. Not anymore." Then I closed the memo app, turned off my phone, and let the silence sit. Heavy, electric, promising a storm. The call came 2 days later, right after I'd finished folding Mateo's laundry. A calm woman's voice, polite but practiced. "Hi, Ms. Morales. This is Carla Ramirez from Child Protective Services. We received a report expressing concerns about your son's well-being. I'd like to schedule a home visit." For a second, I didn't understand the words. They just floated there, harmless syllables trying to sound routine. Then it hit me, cold and slow. A report. Someone had called CPS on me. I swallowed hard. Concerns about what? "I can't discuss the specifics over the phone. It's just part of our process. Would tomorrow at 2 work for you?" My throat went dry. "Yes," I said automatically. "Tomorrow's fine." After she hung up, I sat there on the floor beside a pile of folded pajamas, staring at nothing. My hands were shaking so badly one of Mateo's tiny socks slipped from my fingers. There was only one person vindictive enough, disciplined enough to do something like this and still think it was righteous. Hank. He couldn't get through the door, so he went through the system. I texted Noor, EVA. He called CPS. "Noor, are you serious?" EVA, "Visit tomorrow at 2. "Noor, I'm coming over. We're not letting them twist this." True to her word, Noor showed up that night with a bottle of lemon cleaner, a folder of preschool paperwork, and her teacher voice that could calm hurricanes. We worked in silence for a while, wiping counters, labeling medicine bottles, straightening Mateo's bookshelf. The sound of order was our therapy. "They're going to look everywhere," Noor said, checking under the sink. "Pantry, bathroom, even your fridge. Just let them. You've got nothing to hide." "I know," I said. "That's not what scares me." "What does?" "That they'll see exactly how hard I've been trying, and it still won't be enough." Noor stopped wiping and looked at me. Really looked. "Ava, you are more than enough. But you need proof, not faith. So we make a binder." She started building one on the kitchen table. Mateo's preschool attendance reports, his medical records, receipts for every grocery run and doctor's visit, photos from his birthday party, balloons, cakes, smiles, time-stamped. We slipped each page into clear plastic sleeves, every sound of the binder snapping shut louder than the last. When we were done, Noor smiled, tired but proud. There, a portfolio of motherhood. He can weaponize guilt but not paperwork. That night, after she left, I sat alone in Mateo's room, watching him sleep. His little chest rose and fell in perfect rhythm. I whispered into the dark, "You're safe, baby. I'll prove it 1,000 times if I have to." The next afternoon, when the doorbell finally rang, I didn't flinch. Because this time, I had receipts. Not for money, but for love. At exactly 2:03 p.m., the doorbell rang. Not urgent, not timid, professional. I wiped my palms on my jeans, opened the door, and met Carla Ramirez, mid-40s, clipboard in hand, soft eyes that had seen too much. "Afternoon, Miss Morales, thank you for having me." Her voice was calm, neutral, The kind of tone that could either save you or sink you depending on what it found. "Of course," I said. "Please come in." The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and nerves. She glanced around, not judging, just noting. Her pen clicked. Once. "You can just walk me through your space." We started in the kitchen. She opened cabinets, checked expiration dates, peeked into the fridge. I could feel my pulse in my throat. She smiled faintly at a note taped to the fridge door. Mateo's handwriting. "Mama is my hero." Next, the bathroom. "Locks on the cabinet. Good." She wrote something down. My stomach unclenched an inch. Mateo came padding out of his room barefoot, holding his stuffed T-Rex. "Hi," he said. "Hi there." Ms. Ramirez smiled. "I like your dinosaur." "His name's Rocket," he said proudly. "Mama says he protects me when she's at work." I froze. That line, so pure, so uncoached, hit harder than any defense I could have prepared. Ms. Ramirez looked at me for a beat, and something softened in her eyes. We finished in his room. Toys in bins, bed made, drawings taped to the wall, rockets, hearts, stick figure hugs, normal, loved. Back at the table, she flipped through the binder Nor and I built. Attendance records, doctor visits, receipts, photos. Every page screaming care. She closed it gently. "Everything looks good, Ms. Morales. I'll file this as unfounded." My knees went weak. "So, it's over?" "Yes." Whoever made the report likely misunderstood the situation. She hesitated, then added quietly, "Sometimes families weaponize concern. I see it more than I'd like." I exhaled for what felt like the first time all week. As she left, she handed me her card. "You're doing fine, Eva. Keep doing what you're doing, and keep that binder. It's gold." When the door closed, I stood in the same spot for a long time. The house finally felt like itself again. Not a crime scene, not a battleground, just a home. Mateo tugged at my sleeve. "Did I do good, Mama?" I knelt down, hugged him tight. "You did perfect, baby. You told the truth." And for the first time in years, truth actually protected us. The day after the CPS visit, the air in my house felt different. Lighter, but not peaceful yet. Peace, I was learning, wasn't silence. It was proof. I spent that morning flipping through Nor's binder again, fingers brushing the smooth plastic sleeves. Every page felt like armor. Not against strangers, but against my own blood. Then my phone buzzed. A voice message from Lenora. "Ava, this has gone too far. Your stepfather didn't deserve to be humiliated like that. Families shouldn't take each other to war." I played it twice. Not because I needed to hear it again, but because I needed to stop hearing it in her tone. That soft guilt, that sugar-laced venom. At noon, I called Raj Patel, my attorney. "You were right," I said. "He's escalating." "CPS. Yeah, they came. It's closed." "Then it's time," Raj said. "We file the restraining order." He walked me through every step. Calm, factual, surgical. List every incident. Keep it clean. No adjectives, just facts. Judges like order, not emotion. So I started to write. May 4th. Showed up uninvited. May 5th. Tried to unlock door with old key. May 6th. Called police claiming joint ownership. May 8th. False CPS report. The pattern looked almost mathematical. Each line a pulse in a dying family. Later that evening, Jenna, my cousin, texted out of nowhere. "I'm done covering for them. I have screenshots, bank transfers, messages. You'll want these." I sat at my table scrolling through her files. Hank wiring Chase money labeled house maintenance. Lenora coaching Chase on how to word things right. My hands didn't shake this time. They stilled. I opened my laptop, attached the evidence, and sent it to Raj with a short message. "Ready when you are." For the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't fear or rage. It was precision. When I tucked Mateo into bed that night, he looked up sleepily and said, "Mama, are the bad guys gone?" I brushed his hair back. "Not yet," I said softly, "but I'm learning how to make them stay away." Then I whispered to myself, "Some people won't stop crossing your line until a judge draws it for you." The text came on a Sunday morning, just as I was tying Mateo's sneakers. "Lenore, we're having a small family meeting at St. Matthew's this afternoon. Just us. Let's put this behind us, honey." She even added a heart emoji, the digital equivalent of crocodile tears. For a second, I hesitated. St. Matthew's. Their church. The same pews where she used to brag about Chase's grades and tell her friends, "I work too much to settle down." I almost said no, but Raj's voice echoed in my head. Never respond in anger. Documentation loves restraint. So I typed, "I'll think about it." That afternoon, the sky looked washed out, pale like old linen. Nora offered to come with me, but I told her no. Some ghosts you face alone. When I arrived, the fellowship hall smelled of coffee and floral perfume, the scent of guilt trying to disguise itself as grace. Lenora waved me over, all brittle warmth. "Eva, thank you for coming. I knew you'd do the right thing." Hank sat beside her, posture stiff, jaw set. Chase leaned against the wall, scrolling on his phone. The perfect family portrait, if you ignored the cracks. They talked about healing, forgiveness, and how family shouldn't air dirty laundry. Every sentence was a sermon dressed as concern. Finally, Hank said it. "You don't really want to go through with that restraining order, do you? Think about Mateo. Kids need their grandparents." I looked at him, at the pew behind him where light filtered through the stained glass, painting his face red and blue like a warning siren. "Kids need safety more," I said. Lenora sighed, shaking her head. "We're just trying to protect what's left of this family." "Then stop trying to own it," I replied. Silence, just the hum of the air vent and the slow tick of the wall clock above the altar. That night, my phone buzzed. A voice note from Jenna. Her whisper cracked through the speaker. "I can't keep pretending. They're planning something. I'm done lying." For the first time, I didn't feel cornered. I felt confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that the storm I sensed had a name, and this time I wasn't facing it alone. The courthouse smelled like old paper and lemon polish, that sterile kind of cleanliness that can't hide history. It was a Tuesday morning, gray and heavy, the kind of sky that looks like it's holding its breath. I sat outside courtroom 4B, fingers tracing the edge of my file folder. Inside, it was every scar turned into evidence. Text messages, photos, police reports, bank transfers, the CPS summary. My entire life with Hank and Lenora reduced to paper and timestamps. Raj leaned over. "Remember," he whispered, "don't argue. Let the facts argue for you." Then the clerk opened the door. "Case number 3247, Morales versus Henderson." That was me, Eva Morales. The name sounded strange, detached, like I was watching someone else's story play out. Inside, the room was cold. Hank sat across from me in his best suit, the one he wore to weddings and funerals. Lenora sat behind him, clutching a tissue like she'd already rehearsed her tears. Chase sat at the back, arms crossed, glaring. The judge, Honorable Miriam Chen, didn't waste time. "Ms. Morales, you are requesting a restraining order against Mr. Henderson on grounds of harassment, trespassing, and malicious CPS reporting?" "Yes, Your Honor." Raj stood, calm as stone. "Your Honor, we'll be presenting evidence of a sustained pattern of coercive control, financial, emotional, and behavioral, culminating in a malicious child welfare report." He laid out everything, piece by piece. Every message, every date, every visit. He spoke like he was reconstructing a crime scene brick by brick, until the entire architecture of abuse stood visible in the middle of that courtroom. When it was Hank's turn, his lawyer, a younger man with a polished voice, tried to spin it. "This is simply a family misunderstanding, Your Honor. My client has only ever shown concern for his grandson's well-being." Hank adjusted his tie, looking up with that practiced blend of indignation and fake hurt. "She's been unstable for years. We were worried about the boy. I didn't want to call CPS, but she gave me no choice." Judge Chen tilted her head slightly. "So you're saying you were forced to report your daughter to child services because she changed the locks on her own home?" I was worried. And yet, CPS found the report unfounded. "They don't always see what's really happening. Or," she said evenly, "sometimes they see exactly what's happening." The room went silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. Raj handed over the final exhibit, Jenna's statement, her notarized affidavit. It detailed how Lenora had helped Hank draft the concerned grandparent report and how they'd discussed teaching Eva a lesson. When the judge read that part aloud, Lenora gasped audibly. Hank's jaw locked. The mask finally cracked. I didn't look away. I wanted him to know I saw it. The moment the performance collapsed, Raj sat down beside me, whispering, "That's the nail." After a pause, the judge leaned forward. "Mr. Henderson, what you've done isn't concern, it's control. And control masquerading as care is still abuse." She signed the paper right there. "The restraining order is granted. 4 years. Immediate effect." The gavel hit the wood. The sound was sharp, final. Lenora started crying. Those same delicate sobs she'd used my whole life to soften his anger. But this time, it didn't work. Hank stood slowly, eyes cold. "You'll regret this, Eva." I met his stare, voice steady. "I already did, for years." When it was over, I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd entered. Raj patted my shoulder. "You didn't just win a case. You reclaimed narrative." Outside, the wind caught the edges of my paperwork, flipping through the pages like it was trying to read my life out loud. For once, I didn't stop it, because maybe that's what justice feels like. Not loud, not triumphant, but quiet, undeniable. Like oxygen filling a room that's been sealed too long. And as I walked toward the parking lot, the sunlight finally broke through the clouds. Not bright, just enough. Enough to see the path forward. Enough to know this time. Silence meant peace. The morning after the hearing, the world felt unnaturally quiet, like the air itself had exhaled after years of holding its breath. I woke up before dawn, the house still half asleep. Mateo's soft snoring carried through the baby monitor, steady and unbothered. For once, there was no tightness in my chest, no waiting for a door to slam or a text to sting. Just stillness. I made coffee, the cheap kind that smelled like burnt hope, but tasted like routine. The silence was so complete that even the sound of the coffee maker gurgling made me flinch. It was peace, but it was fragile. Peace built on a piece of paper signed by a stranger in a black robe. Around noon, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. For a second, I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen. Then the voicemail icon blinked. I played it. "You won today, but you lost your family. A tree without roots always falls, Eva." The voice was distorted, low, almost mechanical, but I'd know that rhythm anywhere. Hank. My stomach turned cold. He hadn't even lasted 24 hours. I saved the message, forwarded it to Raj with the subject line, "Violation number 1." His reply came within minutes. "File it with Officer Keene. Every contact counts. Don't delete anything." The next morning, another message. A photo this time. The front of my house. The image was grainy, taken from across the street at night. The caption, "Still standing, huh?" My hands trembled as I saved it. Violation number 2. Officer Keene didn't waste words when she came by that afternoon. He's testing the boundary. They usually do. We'll handle it. And she did. Within 2 days, Hank spent a night in county jail. A reminder, they called it, that the restraining order wasn't a suggestion. When I heard the news, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. Like my body finally realized the war was over but hadn't told my nerves yet. That evening, I stood in the doorway of Mateo's room. He was asleep under his dinosaur blanket, clutching the stuffed bear he'd named Buddy 2. The first one, Buddy 1, had been torn apart years ago during one of Hank's cleaning sprees. I hadn't thought about that in so long. I whispered, "You're safe now, baby." But the truth was, I didn't quite believe it yet. The next few weeks blurred into something close to normal. Work, school drop-offs, grocery lists, the mundane rhythm of survival. People at the clinic started saying I looked lighter. Noor joked that I was finally learning to breathe like a free person. Maybe she was right. Then one afternoon, my mother, Lenora, sent an email from a new account. "Ava, please. I can't lose both of you. He's angry, but he's broken. You've made your point. Let's fix this before it's too late." I hovered over the reply button, heart tugging between pity and exhaustion. Then I clicked delete, because every please from her had always come wrapped in a should. Because forgiveness, when forced, isn't healing. It's erasure. 2 weeks later, Hank tried again. This time through a neighbor's number, a single text, "You'll miss me when I'm gone." It was the last one he ever sent. He was arrested that evening for violating the order again. Second offense. They said he spent the night shouting about disrespect and ungrateful children. I didn't go to the hearing. I didn't need to. The system finally spoke for me. Afterward, I sat on my porch watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. The house was quiet except for the creak of the swing under me and the faint laughter of Mateo from inside. The old deadbolt glinted in the fading light, the one I'd replaced months ago. I kept it as a reminder. What's broken can still protect you, if you remember why it cracked. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small, didn't feel scared, didn't feel his, just free. And as night settled over the house, I whispered into the dark, "You can't lose what was never yours to own." Then I closed the door, quietly, firmly, like punctuation at the end of a very long sentence. 6 months later, peace finally stopped feeling like a temporary guest. It had settled in, quiet, steady, a little awkward at first, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. But I made room for it. The mornings were different now. No more waking to the hum of dread. No more scrolling through messages wondering which version of family I'd face that day. Just me, Mateo, and sunlight spilling across the kitchen table like forgiveness. He sat there that morning, coloring a picture of our house, the one with the blue shutters and the little garden we'd started together. He drew 3 stick figures, me, him, and Buddy 2, the stuffed bear. When he was done, he looked up and grinned. "We need to hang this one, Mama." "We will," I said, right above the door. I used to think closure meant silence from the people who hurt you. Now I know it's the sound of your own laughter filling the space they used to occupy. Work was good. I'd been promoted, clinic supervisor. It wasn't glamorous, but it meant stability. Some days, new patients came in, shoulders tight, stories half-spoken. I'd see that flicker in their eyes, the same kind of exhaustion that once lived in mine, and I'd tell them, "You're not crazy for wanting peace. You're brave for demanding it." Maybe healing isn't a single sunrise. Maybe it's 1,000 tiny mornings where you don't flinch when you hear your phone buzz. Noor still came over every Friday. We'd sit on the porch with wine and watch Mateo chase fireflies. She joked that the house finally looked lived in, like Joy's been redecorating. Sometimes we didn't talk about Hank or Lenora at all. Sometimes we did. But when we did, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about perspective. She once said, "You built your own lineage, Eva, not from blood, from choice." And she was right. Family isn't who gives you their last name. It's who shows up when the world gets small. A few weeks ago, I got a letter. Not from Hank, not from Lenora, from Jenna. She'd moved out of town, started therapy, and wanted to thank me. "You standing up made me realize what silence costs," she wrote. "I'm trying to stop being the echo in someone else's story." I folded that letter and tucked it in the back of my journal. Proof that truth ripples, even when it's whispered. One night after Mateo fell asleep, I walked out to the porch again. The air was soft and damp, the way summer evenings always are here. I could still see the faint outline where the old deadbolt had been. Instead of bitterness, I felt gratitude, not for the pain, but for the clarity it forced me to earn. I whispered, "Some wars end quietly. The loud ones just teach you how to hear the silence." My phone buzzed on the railing. A notification from a new email address. Subject: Podcast Collaboration. Your story could help others. I smiled. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like someone wanted to take something from me. It felt like an opening. Maybe it was time to tell my story. Not for revenge, but for resonance. Because for every person who's been told they're too sensitive, there's someone who needs to hear that sensitivity was actually survival. I looked back at the house. Warm lights glowing through the window, Mateo's little nightlight flickering upstairs. The world outside was still imperfect, but this small corner of it, this home, this piece, was mine. And that was enough, for now. A week later, I opened my mailbox and found a plain white envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. 4 words handwritten in Hank's familiar block letters. "Blood always finds you." I didn't flinch. I just took a deep breath, tore it in half, and dropped it in the trash. Because this time, I finally understood. Some bloodlines end when you choose to stop bleeding for them. The camera lingers on the torn paper in the trash, then pans up to Eva closing her front door, slow and steady. Click, fade to black. Sometimes peace isn't inherited, it's claimed, to be continued.